What's going on, FA Nation? Look who it is. It's Justin Fensterman and Adam Ronis, your Alarm After Hours midweek team. The Genius Beasts are here. Ronis, happy Friday. How are you?
Yeah, glad that it's Friday. Weekend is here, but still remains busy even over the weekend. A lot of sports going on.
I know, dude, absolutely. And I want to start with this, Ronis, because it was very funny. I was talking to one of our biggest fans, one of our 5 fans that we actually have, Ronis, and one of my best friends asked me today, he's like, so who are you doing the live stream with? Is it Ronis? I was like, actually, it is Ronis. And he's like, oh, that's awesome for you. And I'm like, yeah, why? And he's like, because you're actually working with someone that you're better looking than. And I thanked him for it, Ronis. So I figured you would appreciate hearing that. Right off the start.
Hopefully you guys have fun on your date.
Yes, listen, we're not going on a date. We have to remain socially distant. I follow rules, Ronis, okay?
It sounded like there's a little romance going on there, and that's fine. I don't want to get in the middle of that, so if he prefers you, all for it.
Listen.
I'm looking for a different demographic.
Listen, it's okay. You know what, Ronis? We still have to remain socially distant, my friend. This stuff is not over
Well, it depends.
Yes. Okay. That's true. You like to bend the rules just a little bit.
Yeah. Certain people I do bend the rules for.
Yes. Adam Ronis, rule breaker. That's what he is. Ronis, let's talk about what's going on around the National Basketball Association bubble. They should just add that to the NBA B right there. What's going on with the playoffs, man? I mean, we saw some 8 seeds start out very nice, and all of a sudden I feel like we came back to normal. Now with Damian Lillard especially focusing on that Lakers-Blazers series, non-shooting hand hurting his finger, but it's looking like he's going to play. I mean, seeing what you've seen, Zach Collins now hurt again, are you still giving the Blazers a little love to win this series at all, or are you giving the Blazers any shot to win this series because they can't keep losing players?
Yeah, I didn't think they would win this series to begin with. I figured it would be tough for the Lakers getting Portland compared to some of the other teams. And Portland was bound to have a game where they just did not shoot well. I didn't think it would be last night. I thought they'd keep it competitive. I mean, it was tough to get a read on the Lakers. I knew the Lakers would win. I thought there was a small possibility they would blow them out, but I just seen what I have from Portland. I don't expect them as a team to give up and quit. And I'm not saying they did. I think they just didn't have it. And you could see the focus that the Lakers knew how integral this game was. And they have to get big performances from Anthony Davis and LeBron James every single game. And then they're going to have to hope that some of their other players can step up. I still thought, like, early in the game, I'm like, they kept chucking threes and missing. I'm like, when are they going to realize this doesn't work? But yeah, the game got so far out of hand. The Lakers certainly needed it for sure. They have not played well in the bubble. They had that game where they opened against the Clippers, won that. They really had nothing to play for, and sometimes it's hard to flip that switch. So they definitely got a huge win, which they needed. And, Portland's problem obviously is defensively. And, again, I was surprised. Game 1, they scored 100 points. If you would have told me before Game 1 Portland's going to score 100 points, I'm like, wow, they're going to lose by 15, 20, because I wouldn't have expected them to slow down the Lakers. The Lakers just played even worse, but they turned it on in Game 2. So you had to get that from the Lakers. They needed that badly, and especially the fashion that they got it, because they needed to get that confidence level back. So I think Portland gets one more game, but I expect the Lakers to win this in 6.
Yeah, I was expecting this to be a 6 or 7 game series, which is why I wanted Portland in there. Lakers get tested a bit early. Looking at some DraftKings Sportsbook odds to win the Western Conference, you still have the Clippers plus 120, the Lakers plus 200 right now, Adam. I mean, where we stand at this moment, what's your confidence level in the favorite at the books here on DraftKings with the Clippers? I mean, 1-1 right now, not having Montrezl Harrell hindered them because he comes back and all of a sudden the team's a bit flat. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, they definitely have. I mean, played 22 minutes last game, 15 in the first. They need his energy, and I expect him to get better. Obviously, sitting out all that time and not playing any regular seeding games in the bubble was a factor. Patrick Beverley was out Game 2. That was a problem. They haven't been able to slow down Dallas, and we've seen them to be a defensive team. So this is a team that we just haven't seen at full strength for most of the year. I still think they're the team that I like. Again, I've liked them all year, so I'm sticking with them. I'm glad that I got the better odds before, back in January and even right before the start of the bubble play. I still feel they're the best team. Paul George shot 4 of 17 the other night, so they need him to do better. Kawhi obviously is going to perform every single game. Lou Williams came on strong last game too, so he's starting to improve. So George, I expect to shoot better in Game 3, and I think Harrell is key. If they need his energy and his hustle, what he brings to the team. So I expect the Clippers to play very, very well in Game 3. I know a lot of people now are starting to look at Dallas and back them with the points, but I'm on the Clippers tonight. I looked and, after a loss, their last 5 games, they're 5-0, and they've won those games by double digits. So they even almost had a chance to make a run. They had a couple runs where they tried to get back in, but Dallas answered every time. But I see a big, strong performance from the Clippers tonight.
I just can't stop thinking that if Porzingis didn't get ejected, Dallas could very easily be up 2-0 right now.
Well, you could say that about a lot of series. If Utah should have won Game 1, Utah could easily be up 2-0 right now. So you could always look at that and have that, and we never know. Porzingis.
Well, they didn't have a player who was their second best impact scorer get ejected with the lead. You know what I'm saying? I don't think
you don't know how that game finishes if he stays in. Clippers still could have won.
True, you're right about that. I'm just saying with the game from a momentum standpoint completely changed after Porzingis got ejected. You wouldn't say that?
But they still hung in there. I mean,
they did.
The Clippers, had to get a shot late to cover that spread. So Dallas hung in there. I mean, Dallas has shown a lot in these first 2 games. We knew they were a good team. Not defensively, they're not good, but they can score with anyone.
You know what? I'm gonna take that back. Actually, they have 2 players on their team whose defense I am currently in love with. Maxi Kleber, who apparently it's not Kleber, it's Kleba, because I continue to notice that the broadcasters call him Kleba, and it's not any kind of New York accent or anything like that. I don't know if you've noticed that, Ronis.
I've noticed it.
Yeah, I've been listening for it now, and it happened. So it's Kleba. And then there's Dorian Finney-Smith, who's become a bit more than just that bailout option. They're giving him some plays. They're letting him attack a little bit. He's pretty gritty, Ronis. What do you think?
Yeah, no, they've done a good job. And even last game, like Luka only scores 28, and they still win pretty comfortably, too. They got performances from several players. So their confidence is definitely growing. They're not intimidated by the Clippers. And the Clippers just need to get it together. They need Beverly back in the court. They need Harrell to step up because, their strength is the depth of their bench. And, Lou Williams is coming on. He played 32 minutes last game. So I expect him to keep it going. And, again, George to bounce back. 4-17 from the field. They're not going to win many games when he does that against good teams.
Well, for those that do want to ride the Mavs a little bit, plus 265 to win that series, the Clippers are my pick. I'm sticking with the Clippers. But I have not been that confident in them. And seeing the odds that they could win the Western Conference versus the Lakers right now, I know that the Lakers lost Game 1, but is that it? That's it? One game, and just like that, all the confidence in this team that has dominated all year is sapped because of one game versus Portland? It just seems that way, Ronis. I know they haven't looked great, but what incentive, what motivation have they had to play? And now, like you said, this game could be the wake-up call, and it just shocked me that I woke up and still seeing the Clippers have the highest odds, according to DraftKings Sportsbook, to win the West.
I'm not too surprised. I don't know if it's one game, but I'm surprised the Lakers had the best record in the West this year. I really am.
I made a bet about that, dude. How do you think I feel?
Because, again, when you look at this team, man, it's just like, where's the other scoring coming from outside of Davis and LeBron? It's just, Kuzma didn't have to do much. I actually thought he possibly could start yesterday. He did it, but I think he could give them that jolt. But they're going to need someone different every game, and they didn't get it in Game 1. And their shooting from the outside has been a problem. So it's just the way this roster is constructed, I don't think they're the best team in the West. I just don't. I think the Clippers are better. And the Clippers have shown flaws themselves. I mean, it's not like they went into the bubble and dominated. They kind of didn't have much to play for. I think the issue with them, though, is they really haven't had their team full strength the entire year. There's always been someone out. I mean, lately it's been Harrell. Lou Williams obviously missed a portion of the bubble. Now Beverly is out. They just haven't had that whole team rarely this year. So if they can get it going, and it looks like they're getting close, we'll see if Beverly plays tonight. I think they're the most complete team in the Western Conference.
No, and I'm with you on that.
But they got to get out of the first round.
Yeah, that's
Dallas
the weird
wins
thing.
Tonight, man.
Yeah,
dude,
man, I'm going to be watching these odds on this series here. Dallas plus 265. I wonder how that's going to shift, especially because there are people out there that are thinking that, Dallas could have taken game one and they could be up 3-0 if they win tonight. I mean, again, I'm very excited to see what the odds are if the Clippers end up losing this game. I find the odds also on this series very funny, too. Boston minus 5,000 at this point to take out Philly. I mean, are you even giving the Sixers a game now? Because they just don't look like they can keep up. And again, it's the depth battle. I don't understand why, when we were getting back into the bubble, all of a sudden, everybody started, and I don't want to say everybody, I shouldn't say that, but a lot of analysts, even NBA analysts, were getting on Philly to win the East, and I didn't understand that. I mean, no road games. I mean, I go where every game's a road game, so neutral site, no traveling. I understand that. But if you look at the roster, it's still very top-heavy. They have no balance. Now they have no Ben Simmons, and look how they're being treated in the first round. Boston is clearly a step ahead of them, and depth is a big reason why.
Yeah, and heart and chemistry, too. I feel like this team quit, and I think they are a team that could get swept, no doubt. I think they just want to go home. Feels like they don't want to be there. Now, they get off to strong starts. I mean, they did in the first quarter last game, they were up 33-27, and then they just got trounced in the second and third quarters. So part of that is coaching, too, not making adjustments. Obviously, the roster's not built. There's been a problem with this team all year long. We've talked about it endlessly. I mean, they only lose 2 games at home, and they can't win on the road. And, yeah, we understand that's how it works in the NBA, but not to that disparity. I mean, they were losing against crap teams on the road. I mean, and it was a trend that I saw and was able to capitalize off it. Sports wagering. Now, I've been hesitant to go heavy on Boston the first 2 games because I wanted to see what Philly would show. Even game 2, like I like Boston, but I'm like, well, what if Philly shows up? And now I'm all in on Boston. So that means Philly's going to cover. Because I guess everyone's
the secret weapon. Ronis betting against them.
But it's hard to back Philly in game 3. I mean, yeah, Embiid's going to get his.
It's hard to back Philly any game.
Well, no, at home, it's easy to back them because they win. But I think in the bubble play, what happened was people looked at it, all right, it's a new season. And it kind of is. I mean, I think for a team like the Lakers, the break really hurt them. They were on a roll. They were cruising. Everything was going right. And now you got this 4-month break. I mean, obviously it helped Portland because it got Yusuf Nurkic, Collins healthy, and they were more of the team that they hoped to have. Well, not at the beginning of the year because we knew Nurkic out, but the team that they hoped to have. So I think with Philly, people looked at it and said, all right, well, they made this transition, moved Ben Simmons up. They have the talent. Maybe this break helps them. And then Simmons got hurt. But there's clearly been a problem with this team all season long. We know Boston has more depth. They lose Gordon Hayward, no problem. A guy like Jaylen Brown steps up. We've seen it. They can put Marcus Smart in the starting lineup, and he's solid. And then they got good bench play in the last game with Cantor coming off the bench, Wanamaker. So they're just a better cohesive unit, better coached team. So I expect them to win game 3. It could be close. We could see, if Philly comes out early and has the lead, that's when I look to bet in-game live on Boston, especially if the odds are good. Because we kind of seen it in the first 2 games. Philly comes out strong, and then Boston adjusts, has an answer, punches them in the face, and Philly lies down.
Right. And that's what I've been seeing as well in this series. And it just stinks, man. I was really excited for this series. I thought it was going to be awesome. Now, I have to hope that Toronto and Boston is as awesome of a series as I think it's going to be. Because I think it's going to be a very bruising series. And with that, I mean, I think it's going to show a lot of similarities to what we saw with Toronto and Philly in the second round last year, Adam.
Yeah, that'll be a really good series for sure. There's no question about it. I think everyone is looking forward to that. I think we knew this first round was not going to be a ton of great games. Although, I mean, again, Clippers, Dallas is certainly intriguing now. Lakers, Portland still has some intrigue. Utah, Denver is intriguing. But we knew the Nets were not going to keep up with Toronto. I mean, they did a great job in the bubble. They had big wins against the Clippers, Bucks. They gave Portland everything they had. But Joe Harris left the bubble. Toronto's just a better team. Brooklyn is just a shell. But we have to give them credit because I think the odds, if you remember, before this whole bubble play started, Orlando was like a huge favorite to be the 7th seed. And the Nets hung in there. They battled. And that's the one thing I like about the Nets. They show a lot of heart and they fight hard. They're clearly overmatched now with Toronto. They're getting blown out currently. They kept it close in game 2, but they just don't have it. They're clearly not a playoff team. They benefited from the Eastern Conference, but you got to give them credit for fighting as hard as they did in the bubble play.
No, 100%. I'm trying to remember if their over-under win total for bubble play was 1.5. I think there was a team that was 1.5. It had to have been them. So, yeah, just amazing with what we saw from them. Let's stick in the Eastern Conference and talk about this team that's looked good. The Miami Heat. Do you think the Heat have looked good, or do you think they're just benefiting and feasting off of a banged-up Pacer team that's missing their big guy in the middle, Domantas Sabonis?
I mean, but, he missed a good portion. I just think the Heat are a better team. I just do. We've had low scores in these 2 games, too. We know Jimmy Butler has a disdain for TJ Warren. But, yeah, they're just a better team. Duncan Robinson goes into the starting lineup, hits 7 threes.
That's what he does, man.
I know. I put him in the article, the playbook, and said, he's a GPP guy. If he's going to take threes and he could hit them and you get that bonus. And he came through at a cheap price if you used them. Dragic back in the starting lineup. He's had a couple good games.
Jay Crowder's hustle has been excellent.
And they didn't even get a good game from Bam, which was surprising. I mean, only 7 points, 5 rebounds. I mean, still got 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block. But yeah, I mean, this Miami team's pretty good. I mean, they're kind of dangerous. They're not flashy, but they're doing what they need to do to beat the Pacers. Who
they can turn up the tempo when they want, though. That's what's good.
And they got some youth. They have some shooting from the outside.
A lot of good ball handlers on that team, and even Bam too. Bam is an excellent ball handler. They can all go coast to coast, and when you're constantly on the break, the opposing defense doesn't have time to settle for their half-court play if you're constantly, I don't want to say on transition, but constantly on an up-tempo style offense. And this is where this leads to. Miami has done pretty well against Milwaukee this season.
Wait, hold up. Don't disrespect Orlando because they're winning this series.
Yeah, okay. Thanks a lot. See, this is different than the radio show where you could get me because I can't see your stupid facial reactions.
I could have sold it if I wanted to.
You weren't going to sell it.
I could have,
Dude, I'm on radio shows with you.
And how many times have I got you? Like, oh, this guy's out for the year. Oh, shoot, for real? Yeah. Oh, damn it. Just kidding.
That's different. That's very, very different. And you do it at the worst possible times, too.
It's the way to make it the most effective.
Yes, the pit of my stomach getting that feeling after that.
But by the way, so where is Chris Middleton? Is he in the bubble? What the hell? Where was he yesterday?
You want to know where Chris Middleton is? I'll tell you where Chris Middleton is. Chris Middleton is at the Arc, my friend. He shouldn't just be at the Arc. This guy doesn't move. Maybe that's the style offense. They got a couple of attackers, and he's just not one of them. I guess when you have someone like Giannis so big in size that you need 2 guys at least covering the lane anyway, that Middleton doesn't need to cut. Middleton has a nice frame, man. I don't know why he doesn't play more inside. That's great that he can hit a top of the key 3. But one thing I like about Tobias Harris is that he's an attacker. He knows how to attack the rim as well, despite shooting a decent amount of threes. Chris Middleton needs to attack the rim more. Start backing down defenders. We don't see that from shooting guards, Adam. We don't see them dribble in the lane and then turn their back to the basket and start going in post style. We don't see that. Very 90s. I've been trying to look for this a bit more. And either the shooting guards are bailout 3-point shooters or quick drivers. There's no one who's willing to work the post And that's where I feel like Chris Middleton with his size can be such an advantageous piece, even more than he is.
Yeah, I mean, this. A lot of the game now is shooting three-pointers, and we've just seen it rise at a ridiculous level. But he only took 8 shots from the field yesterday. I was surprised by that. This was a huge game. I mean, I know he had 4 fouls, but basically the entire starting unit did. But Bledsoe did what he needed to do. Brook Lopez bounced back. We knew Orlando was not going to shoot like they did in Game 1. I mean, They just shot extremely well.
You see the way Markelle Fultz was shooting threes?
Yeah.
That motion, man, he looks like a robot with that way he shoots.
Yeah, and they didn't have Aaron Gordon again. We'll see if he plays Game 3. But, again, you would think, kind of the wake-up call for Milwaukee, and they move on in this series, setting up, Milwaukee-Miami.
I mean, I'm not giving Miami the series at all. Miami's done a pretty good job. I believe they have a win or 2 against the Bucks this season. And, an up-tempo offense, if they can keep up with Milwaukee, I'm wondering if they can make this a actual series, or do you think, looking at these two teams, that Milwaukee will steamroll them in 5 games?
I wouldn't say steamroll, especially with the way Milwaukee has played. We'll see. Maybe they get better this series and kind of rediscover their defensive prowess, because we kind of haven't seen it in this series. Yeah, they held Orlando to 96, but again, Orlando shot 34.8% and actually missed quite a few open looks, 7 of 33 from 3. And Orlando's clearly not 100% now either without Aaron Gordon there. So I think I'm sure Miami won one of those games at home, right? Because Miami was a really good home team too, so that's something to keep an eye on. But
they were awful on the road.
Yeah, so I think Miami can be competitive in this series, maybe push it to 6.
Right. And again, this is what I'm thinking about with this Heat team, because very under-the-radar team. Oh, the Sixers are the dark horse. No, the Heat have actual depth, and they've done a good job. I mean, even getting Iguodala in there, I mean, good playoff veteran to have, helps them out because they were very offensive, helps them out on the defensive end. We mentioned Bam as well. I mean, just that this is why they're towering over Indiana right now. And again, no Domantas Sabonis doesn't help cancel anything out. Ronis, continuing to go over what's going on in this playoffs for the NBA, looking at Oklahoma City, Houston. Houston is playing with a lot of fire right now, and it's just Russell Westbrook who. They have enough guys hitting threes, and that's just what they are, man. They're all offense, and maybe the Thunder aren't quick enough to keep up with them.
Yeah, I think it's been a real disappointment for the Thunder so far. I mean, the fact that they couldn't get one of these games without Russell Westbrook is a major disappointment. And we know what Houston does. They're going to take a ton of threes. When they shoot 56, was that a playoff record, I believe, Game 2? But they've been doing it, and I keep saying, I'm like, all right, well, one of these games, they're just not going to shoot well, and it's going to cost them. But they had 19 threes in that game. They only shot 41% from the field, and Harden didn't even have a bit. That's what's so disheartening. Harden had 21 points in that game. If you would have said, hey, Rockets, no Russell Westbrook, Harden scores 21, you would say, all right, Thunder are probably going to win that game, right? And they lost by 13, man. So I don't know. I thought the Thunder had a shot to win this series, and they were plus like 120, 130 to win the series before. I'm like, that's pretty good odds, and it's looking pretty bad right now. I mean, they're
plus 725
to win the series now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, they already dropped 2, and they didn't look great doing so. I mean, Gilgeous-Alexander was terrible in Game 1. He bounced back in Game 2, 31, but Chris Paul, 14 after having a really good Game 1. So, and the Rockets are just getting enough from guys like Jeff Green, who's played very well over the last 5-6 games. Eric Gordon, was only 6 of 20, 0 at 10 from 3-point range, but still had 15, and they've gotten just enough. We're not used to the Rockets scoring 111 points and winning.
I know, seriously. And that's why, that's why I'm very interested to see what happens if, let's just say, they sweep the Thunder, having to play the Lakers, who maybe drop another game to Portland, so they have 6 while the Rockets sweep, and all of a sudden everyone's like, they're going to do it. They're going to beat LeBron and the Lakers. I will look like the biggest idiot going, Ronis, because I've been looking at these odds since March and been telling you, I don't know why Houston has such high odds. I don't get it. They play micro ball. They don't have a center. They have a power forward. That's about it. They essentially have 2 combo forwards handling the post. No defense, plenty of offense. We know that. You think they're going to win the championship, and you told me months ago that offense is going to tower over teams, and we're seeing that here in the first round in the bubble.
Although I don't think the offense has been great though.
Right.
111 points for the Rockets. Again, Harden didn't have a huge game. They scored 123 in the first game, but
the Thunder aren't that deep too. Took me a little bit to recognize that, but up front, they don't have much depth. I mean, they've got their 3 guards, so they've got that going for them. But then you're going to tell me, I mean, they got Gallinari. Steven Adams is a threat every so often when it comes to offense, especially. You're going to tell me Darius Bazley really makes that much of a difference?
Well, I think, too, it's not like they run an offense for Adams. They're not running plays for him. So it's a good matchup there. When you talk about facing the Lakers, I mean, Anthony Davis, man, like who's going to stop him?
No one.
That's the problem. I think maybe we kind of overlooked this matchup here, that maybe it wasn't that bad. And again, the Thunder were a team that kind of surprised everyone this year. And if I'm not mistaken, too, I thought that they also struggled. We did this like in trivia.
Yeah, we did do this in
trivia.
Didn't
they struggle against good teams this year, if I'm not mistaken?
It was them or Toronto.
Toronto definitely had a record under 500 against, well, at least going into bubble play. But they're still a legit team, though. It's just that was just one glaring concern for me. But I think the Thunder overachieved this year. But still, for them to be down 2-0, I didn't see it. I thought they'd get at least one game with Westbrook out.
So let me ask you this very quickly about the Thunder overall. Chris Paul still has a monster amount of money, I believe in the 40s, and when it comes to millions of dollars left on his deal, 2 years, I believe, as well. Do you think that for a team that has that open salary, seeing what Chris Paul has done for this Thunder team, do you think maybe if you're a team that's kind of on the rise and looking for that piece, even if it's for a couple of years, you go after and just pay the heavy premium for Chris Paul just to get him? Because to me, if you're a team that has pieces and are starting to rise up in the standings, you get a guy like that for 2 to 3 years. Maybe then you get another guard that can take over after his tutelage for the next couple of years. I don't think the price is that steep if Chris Paul can still do what he's done for the Thunder this year.
Yeah, I mean, 35, so he'll be 36 whenever next season starts, whether it's December, January, February, who knows at this point. It keeps changing. But at some point next year, he'll be 36. But still showed big-time ability this year. So I guess a lot's going to depend on how that team looks and if they want to take on the salary. I forgot the exact how many years he has left. But yeah,
I think it's 2, and he has like a little bit over 40 left, something like that. So people ask me, like, really? I mean, you really want to trade for Chris Paul if you're a team? And it's like, yeah, I would. It's 2 years. He's off your books, and hopefully he rubs off on someone so that they have his skill set. One more question I have for you, Ronis, because the NBA lottery did take place last night. Minnesota getting the number 1 overall pick, and already watching to see what these analysts on TV and radio are saying and what they're going to do with the pick. And it's looking like a few of the analysts think that LaMelo Ball would serve well as that number 1 pick. And this is where I have to ask you and start to think, I don't know how much you've seen of LaMelo Ball, but when you have a D'Angelo Russell, don't you think that they're kind of the same player? And because he's so ball dominant, why draft a point guard? Just let D'Lo run your point.
Yeah, it would be interesting in the backcourt. It certainly probably hurt them defensively, but if they feel he's the best player and they like that backcourt, I could see them taking it. I haven't really kind of delved too deep in. I got too much else going on to worry about the NBA draft right now.
That's why I get paid the big bucks to do this kind of stuff.
Exactly. I'm too busy wagering on baseball and NBA.
Yes, we get it. You work hard. We know.
I know. I'm not saying that that at all. I'm just saying
You
that.
are saying that. You just said you're too busy. We get it. It's everything you do.
To spend a lot of time on the NBA draft right now. Why do I need to? It's not.
I'm just asking you a question. That's why. You don't have to spend a lot of time.
Saying that they could take LaMelo Ball. I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
Right. I just thought Edwards would be better for them, looking like they could need another forward on their team. I mean, unless they're planning on an exit for Towns, Wiseman, but I can't see them going Wiseman. So it's just, again, to me, Edwards just seems to make a little bit more sense. But I'm seeing analysts already say LaMelo Ball. They just seem too similar in that they would completely clash in that backcourt. And they've got, what are you going to do with Culver? Put him at the 3? I'd rather see him at the 2.
Yeah, sometimes teams will just take, if they feel like Ball is the best player on their board, they'll just take him and then figure it out.
Right. Or they could trade the pick. Big-time asset. Just like Adam Ronis, big-time asset for Fantasy Alarm at Adam Ronis at Fensterman Sports. Ronis, this has been an awesome time getting to talk more NBA playoffs with you. I hope you have an awesome weekend. I hope you dominate in softball. You got softball still, or is it over already?
Nah, last week of the regular season on Sunday, then playoffs.
All right, just remember, stay healthy. Don't hurt yourself because, hey, man, we need those ratings for Alarm After Hours. 1 to 3 a.m. Eastern. What else am I spending it with in the middle of the week?
So far, so good. No COVID, man. Been playing with no mask, too, so everything's...
What? So, you know what? It's as long as you stay healthy at this point, man. I just care about your health. That's why I'm just a nice guy. I'm Justin Fensterman, and again, you can always catch us on fantasyalarm.com. The family is always with you to help you win fantasy sports championships. For Ronis, I'm Fensterman. We always dominate. Why is that? There's no other option. We just win.